Hi guys, and welcome to another video on the Hunts and Bunks channel. Today we are going to be discussing the January transfer window, and more importantly, we're going to be ranking the top 6 Premier League teams, the Big Six, and their transfer business. We're going to give them a grade individually, and then see who we believe to have the best window and who we believe had the worst. Notable biases here. I'm an Arsenal fan, and Alex, as you know, is a City fan, but hopefully that won't play too much into our judgment per se, which I actually think, from an Arsenal fan's perspective, we've had a pretty bad window overall. Anyway, we'll get into it shortly. We'll start off with City because they've been the least active out of all the clubs. They've had one major sale. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think by far we've had the worst transfer window out of any of the top 6 teams. The only player we've brought in is Maximo Perrone, who I'm not going to lie, not heard anything of him before the signing for about 10 million. It's been.
Sounds like a beer.
What did you say? Sorry.
Sounds like a beer.
Yeah, it does. It does. But the thing is, it's quite I think this is quite a promising signing because I've not heard too much of Julian Alvarez before we signed him and plucked him from. I mean, we didn't really pluck him because he'd done so well in the Argentinian league. But point is, we've done this more recently with Alvarez, for example, and it's gone well. So I think it could be a fairly decent signing. But I feel like this was one of the few windows where we actually did need a bit more depth, and I thought we needed depth potentially at the left back spot anyway. And then Cancelo's departure on loan with a 70 million buyout potential in the summer. That just completely shocked me because there was a lot of news and a lot of rumours about players falling out with Pep or players being frustrated at lack of game time. But it seemed to happen over pretty much the space of a day. It was the rumour came out that he might be signing, and then it was here we go, and then he's gone now. So it happened so quick.
It looks like that Pep's falling out with a few players at City. Now, the one thing is that I will say is they're having, by City standards of what's expected with Haaland, a pretty poor season this season. Sitting second, 5 points off top, potentially 8 points off top. They've essentially got weaker because they've lost the best left back, arguably best fullback in the world over the last 2 to 3 years. So how do you think that affects the title chances?
The thing is, I actually think that Cancelo's form, whether this be because he's fallen out with Pep or not, but it's not been a few games. It's stringing up at like 7 or 8 games in a row. Even when he has played, he has been really poor. His defensive attributes are the thing that let him down for me. Because City, we play against a team that drops deep and then they'll try and get us on the counter. And it's been a number of occasions where Cancelo has got caught out because he's a little bit weak defensively. And I do think actually that Nathan Ake's been brilliant at left back. I would have said anyway that he is our best left back in terms of if you happen to pick a team now based on how they're playing, he's our best left back. He was brilliant. He was brilliant against Arsenal. I know Saka didn't have his best game, so I'm not going to say that he played Saka out the game or whatever because he didn't. Saka just had an off day, which he's overdue considering how many games he's played in a row for Arsenal. But it doesn't take away from the fact that Ake has been superb for City. And despite him naturally being a centre half, he's stepped into the left back role and he's provided a lot of solidity for us. And he works perfectly with this new system Pep wants to use, which seems to have Rico Lewis or any player, even Walker when he plays at the right back position, bombing on and tucking into midfield. He liked to do that with Cancelo anyway, but it's more obvious now because they actually tuck in with Rodri in midfield, offer an extra man in midfield now, potentially because we've got a more ageing midfield with De Bruyne and Gundogan not having as much energy as they once had. But yeah, he's worked perfectly because it shifts across as a back three and it's been really successful.
So do you think that... What would you rank this transfer window then? One massive loss, not many coming in.
What am I saying? What are we doing? A to F?
Do A to F standard.
It's not good. It's like a
D.
A D, yeah, I was going to say a D. Because it's not catastrophically bad. It's not that bad. It's not like we've gone and, I don't know, we could have done more than just him. We could have lost Bernardo Silva as well, or Laporte, another couple of the players that have been rumoured to fall out with Pep. So I wouldn't say it's incredibly awful considering Cancelo hasn't been playing anyway.
Do
But
you
it's,
think if you don't win the,
it's
do you
still
think if you don't win the league, then this will be used as an excuse?
no, I don't think so because we're playing without Cancelo anyway. It's not like he's been in the team week in week out and then he's just left. But yeah, it's still a massive loss for
Okay.
City. He's been so good for us. Him and Walker, I mean, that's a brilliant two fullbacks to have at your disposal. And at the moment, we're not using either of them. It's Rico and Tanaka. So it is strange how that suddenly flipped.
So the next team we'll talk about, I guess, is Spurs. They've had Pedro Porro, obviously coming on loan, Danjuma coming on loan, which they took last minute from Everton. And then their outgoings was Matt Doherty, who did a really weird sort of transfer where he made a loan move to Atletico, and then Spurs then decided to rescind his contract, which I believe is due to the loan registrations of how many you're allowed out of the club at one time. And then Jed Spence obviously also left the club to Rennes on loan. And Brian Hill, if you count him as a first team player. So for me, it's a weird one because you'd imagine with Conte's contract expiring in the summer, you expect them to do more. I know it sounds stupid, but Conte's a manager. If he's not pleased with the transfer business they're doing and the sort of direction the club's going in, he's going to leave. Now, Conte's too elite for that club anyway. They're going to do anything to sort of please him. And they've only signed Danjuma and Porro. I think Porro will do quite well. He's not defensive at all as a fullback. He's athletic and he's quite good attacking wise. So I think he will do decent, maybe. I'm still unsure on it. I know he came through City originally, didn't he? But
yeah.
I'm unsure on it. Danjuma, I think, is a great player, but last time he was in the Premier League, didn't necessarily work out how it should have done. And it's whether he can sort of push on and show the form he's shown in La Liga. Losing Matt Doherty, I don't think it's too much of a blow. It's a weird one, but it's not too much of a blow. And the fact they managed to get Jed Spence out the club on loan so he can actually develop and have game time seems like a positive thing because the next manager might want Jed Spence, whereas Conte clearly doesn't. I think the transfers, personally, I'd give them a C.
Yeah.
Because they're only loan deals with like options in I think it's Porro that's an option. I don't know if Danjuma's got an option. He might have. They're not like amazing transfers, but they're decent. I don't think they're the transfers that will push them onto top four. I might be wrong there. So for me, I'd go C because they're not pushing the boat out too much, and they've lost two right backs. So now they have Pedro Porro and then Emerson Royal. I think I'd rather have Doherty or Jed Spence than Emerson Royal. So that's weakened the depth at least. So yeah, I'd probably say C. But again, I'm biased. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's a C as well. It's strange how out of all the right wing backs they had that they could have sold, Emerson Royal's the one that stayed because on paper he seems to be the worst of them all. I've not seen much from Jed Spence, but
yeah,
I'm surprised that because there were shouts from the fans wanting him to go, Emerson Royal, because of how poor he'd been. So it's really strange that they've kept him, but yeah, it was so strange with that Matt Doherty thing as well, with Spurs not actually acknowledging the fact that they had reached the limit of the loan deals, so Doherty had to
poor. It is poor, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then with the ins, then we'll go to Liverpool, which I know it's a bit quick, but we'll try and speed through this because obviously we've also got to rank the teams in order. Liverpool didn't really sell anyone at all. They brought in Cody Gakpo. What do you make of that? It was £37 million.
I think Cody Gakpo is a great signing. I still think it's harsh to judge him so soon because not only is he playing in a team that has got a lot of players yet to come back, for example, Diaz, Jota potentially as well, but also he's not playing in his natural position. He's been playing down the middle a lot for Liverpool. And while he played there for the Netherlands, I feel like he's a lot better off that left-hand side. That's where he mainly played for PSV. That's where he's got all his joy before. So I think when he does eventually start playing on the left-hand side, and, for example, Jota comes back and starts playing down the middle, I think that's when we'll see the best out of Cody Gakpo because it's harsh to judge him when not only he's not getting many goals or whatever, or not getting many contributions, but the whole team isn't playing very well. So while you'd expect him to play well, perhaps regardless of how the whole team's playing, I think it's harsh to judge him just based on these few games starting.
Yeah, I think Gakpo will be a good signing. My more concern is why I personally give Liverpool a C is more because they haven't addressed the areas that they need to address still. They still need about 3 centre midfielders. They still could do with a backup fullback. And they're so short in so many areas that it's costing them results and it's costing Klopp. And it's only going to go negatively if the board don't sort it out. I think Liverpool fans are crying for some reinforcements and some help in that area of the field. And they've only addressed the attacking line. They haven't addressed that midfield position or midfield few positions. Fabinho has been poor this season. Thiago is the only midfielder that can hold his head up with any reasonable sort of credit in that midfield. Other than that, you've got Harvey Elliott, who clearly can't defend. Trent, who's having a really poor season. Like, there's so many factors, but the attack isn't necessarily the issue. It's still a decent Premier League attack, or a good one. It's more the actual midfield that links it together and the defence that's been poor. So it's a case of, for me, it's a C purely because they haven't addressed the areas that they need to address.
Yeah, I think also, while Liverpool just need midfield reinforcements anyway, I think they need to bring in a more attacking-minded midfielder, because in the past they've had Firmino who drops in and he'll be that sort of link between the midfield and attack. But now they're not playing with him, and Nunez is strictly a player who wants to get in behind. Cody Gakpo wants to get in behind. Salah's drifting far out wide. There's no real connection unless Thiago bombs on a little bit, which he can't do as much because they're a little bit defensively weaker at the moment. So I do think they need a progressive midfielder who I think they were linked with Mason Mount the other week. That sort of player, I'm not saying Mason Mount would be a perfect fit for Liverpool, but that sort of player, an attacking-minded midfielder who will get the ball, drive, and then be able to play it in behind to one of Gakpo.
They could have, to be honest, they should have gone. I know I don't rate him at all, but they could have just gone for Conor Gallagher. He's just full of legs. He would have been fine for that role.
I don't rate Conor Gallagher much, if any, but the thing is, you get what you mean. They need some energy. They need some energy in the midfield, that's for sure.
Klopp's system, especially when he first joined Liverpool, made average midfielders perform to a better role because they were workmen. So Henderson has elevated his career tenfold because he had a good engine on him. Wijnaldum was bloody useless before Klopp came along, and he's all right now because of Klopp's system. So players like Conor Gallagher, who can just run, like Mason Mount, who I think is a good goal-scoring midfielder, doesn't have much creatively, would do wonders under Klopp, because that's his system. But what grade do you give their transfer window?
Yeah, a C as well. I can't push it further than that. It's quite similar to Tottenham, to be honest. They brought in one decent signing, but they still haven't really addressed the areas, as you said, that needed improvement.
Yeah, right. We'll move on to the big one, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Bloody signed the whole team. They've got Enzo Fernandez in for 121 million, Mudryk in for 70 million, Benoit Badiashile in for 38 million, Noni Madueke in for 35 million, Gusto in for 30 million, Andre Santos in for 12 million, David Datro Fofana in for 12 million, João Felix in on loan for an 11 million loan fee, and then they ended the loan of some keeper called Slonina. Never heard of him. Departures wise, they sold Jorginho to Arsenal for £11.5 million, and they let Gusto go back on loan to Lyon till the end of the season. So, obviously, there's a lot of business. They put young players on a young contract. They've clearly got sort of a target, which is just young, promising players. The average age of all those signings is 20.3. They spent, 329.5 million on players with total market value of 240 million, according to Transfermarkt. It's all on my screen here. That's why I keep looking at it. But they are players who actually show a lot of promise. Badiashile's played well so far. Mudryk showed glimpses of him being well. My issue is some of Chelsea's targets don't seem to be coherent with what they need. They also don't seem to be have a clear plan. They're just buying any young player they can get their hands on who is a hot prospect. They're not thinking, how can we put these in the team? You also look at their squad. There needs to be a balance within a squad. They've already got about 50 wingers, but they signed, 3 wingers in this window? 2 wingers, sorry, and if you class João Felix to play across the front line, 3. So I don't really understand it. I think because of the vast amount of spend that they've done, which is mental and it's clearly like a bit unethical, then you have to give him an A. But for like the overall sort of squad planning element and what the bloody hell's going on, it's gonna have to be taken down for me to like a B. But I'm gonna give it an A because of the transfers, and that's what we're ranking him on. I just don't think it makes too much sense.
Yeah, I would go a B if I'm being honest, because I think that there's 3 or 4 of the signings that are really good. I think Enzo Fernandez will be really, really good for Chelsea. He's a ball-winning midfielder. He's tenacious. He'll get stuck in. I think that's exactly what they need. Now, Jorginho's gone and obviously his quality was deteriorating anyway. And now Kante is aging and keeps getting injuries. I think he's exactly what they need in midfield. While I think it's far too expensive, and £106 million for him is far too much, basically off the back of one good World Cup, I think it is exactly what they need in midfield. And then Mudryk as well. I think it will be a very good signing, but they, as you say, they've got so many forwards. I think they needed to ship out, worry about getting rid of forwards before they started bringing him in as well, because they've got Pulisic, Havertz. It's ridiculous how many they've got.
The only issue as well is transfers that go above the £100 million or even close to it usually don't work out well. So they are taking a risk. Like if you look at the track history of transfers over, say, 80 million, it's only a small percentile that have actually worked out well.
Yeah.
Like
if you look at Felix, for example, he was 105 to Madrid, and he's now found himself on loan.
Coutinho, another example.
Ousmane Dembele was one of the few. I mean, even with him, 135.
Just
injury prone. I mean, you had Griezmann to Barca. It's a ridiculous amount. The first one that comes to my head is Virgil van Dijk in that sort of 80 million bracket. That was a really good signing for the price.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, what do you rate that as a B?
I'm rating it a B. I think it's a little bit reckless the way they've spent all this money.
Especially, I mean, financial fair play. I have to look at that. That's surely
it's really strange how they've not had any restrictions with it or anything. But it's more to do with all the young signings as well, like Datro Fofana and then Andrey Santos, all these players that are really promising. And they're kind of just signing them to ship them off. That Datro Fofana, they signed him this window. And then he's going to go back. He was potentially going to go on loan straight away. And that's not really, I don't see that as ethical business, because you just sign, that's like something you do on Football Manager or something. You bring someone in who looks promising and then ship them off to see how they do, because you know they're not quite ready. That's not good for players' development, really.
No, I mean, I don't mind that too much. That's not too unethical. I think signing that many players is a bit dodgy, especially that money. But
what the squad size will be now as well.
No, it's mad. But we'll move on. We'll look at United. They've brought in 3 players, 3 loans. Jack Butland to be a backup keeper. Wout Weghorst from Burnley on loan. And Marcel Sabitzer. They have lost pretty much no one except from some loanies. So, what are your thoughts? Just like
it's very meh. It's very average. If Eriksen hadn't have got injured, they would have been looking at a Jack Butland loan and a Wout Weghorst loan. And considering the Weghorst one is because they need a striker, it's a very average signing for a club like United. There are strikers out there. You've just got to.
Weghorst absolutely screams Ighalo. Like,
I know it is that sort of signing.
I'm going to give United a C, because I think they've addressed the striker issue. That's fair. They needed a striker. Sabitzer is a very good player, so even though Eriksen's injury has occurred, they're still bringing in someone of quality, which I think when a player gets injured, that's what the January transfer window is there for, to sign a replacement. So I can't really slate them for that. Jack Butland on loan, I mean, weird, but okay. You need a backup keeper. I'll give him a C because it's sensible if nothing else, but it's just not inspiring.
Yeah, I'd be looking. I'm looking in between a C and a D. I'd give it like a C minus if we were to do that, because Weghorst, it's not like with the Sabitzer one. I think that is good business because you're filling a gap that you had. But I don't even think Weghorst is that really worth signing at all, because
Martial's injured, isn't he?
I know Martial's injured, but it's not.
They need a focus.
If they went with someone else up front, I can't see them being. I really don't get that about Weghorst signing, because he was poor at Burnley, and sure he scored 2 goals in the World Cup, but it was one game, and then he's done
Yeah.
okay in the Turkish league. It just doesn't make any sense to me. There's
No,
surely
I agree with that.
options out there, like even with Chelsea getting Joao Felix. There
I'll tell
are
you what would have made more
options out
sense for
there.
United. If United wanted a focal point, go to AC Milan, say, I'll give you 2 million for Olivier Giroud. And
That
we'll
would have
have him.
made more sense. That would have made more sense. And he is, God knows how old he is, but if it's a loan till the end of the season,
34.
they may as well have just done that. If it's a loan, it doesn't really matter about thinking about the future.
Well, right. We'll move on to Arsenal. Now, on the face of it, people say it's a good thing from what I've seen online. Jorginho in, Cedric Suarez out, Sambi Lokonga is obviously on loan to Palace. Marquinhos is headed out on loan. We've also brought in Kiawar and Trossard. Now, Trossard, good signing. I enjoy that one. I like that one. Gives me good inspiration. Beautiful. 21 million. Premier League proven. Very good player. Looked decent when he played against City as well, which we were there. Looked decent the time before as well when he came off the bench against United. Kiawar, can't even judge because I've never seen the bloke play. He's centre back cover on the left hand side, left footed. Young defender, meets the philosophy. Bit uninspiring because I've never heard of him, but he could be good. So I'm not gonna pass judgment. My issue is probably the most hateable and punchable man in football, Jorginho.
After Richarlison.
All right, after Richarlison. I can't stand him for a start. His beard's got pubes in it, and he's just not very likable. And that shouldn't mean much. But the idea of January was to get centre midfield depth. And then he's got injured over the January period, which has made us panic and get Jorginho, right? We went for Caicedo, who can play defensive midfield and more offensive, like number 6 and number 8. He can't necessarily play 10, but that's not what. Jorginho really can only play number 6 now, for his age, right? We then loan out Sambi Lokonga, who granted hasn't played much, but now you look at our numbers in midfield, and they're basically the same as they were before. We've lost Sambi, we've lost El Neni, we've brought in Jorginho. So if anything, we've got actually less depth now.
Yeah.
And it just riles me up because we needed to add more, as in we're going for a title, and I know they clearly tried to with Caicedo, who's a bit more versatile, can play both midfield positions, so we could cover Partey and Xhaka. But Jorginho can probably only cover for one of them, and it's probably Partey, which is great. We've got the Partey replacement, but who's going to cover for Xhaka now? Because we'd lose so much playing Ødegaard in centre midfield. Everyone online saying play Fabio Vieira there in that next role, or play Emile Smith-Rowe. Every time I've seen Emile Smith-Rowe play as that left-sided number 8 or a 10, he's been useless. He can only really play on the wing in that space. Fabio Vieira, every time I've seen him, other than when he's had a shot, looks pretty weak. Doesn't seem like he'd be up for the midfield battle at all in a 50-50. Doesn't seem to have the athleticism either to impose himself on a game. We've then lost out on a right back, Cedric, who could play on either side, who, when you look at it, we've got Ben White, who's playing out of position at right back. Granted, if that is his position, fair enough. But that means we'd only have, we've got enough centre-backs, but we now only have Ben White and Tomiyasu at right back. Tomiyasu is notoriously injury-prone. So it only takes a Ben White injury for us to be buggered there. Because you can't put out Saliba at right back, really. He's not a right back. Tierney can't play that side. So then you're having to look at maybe shifting things if injuries do happen. Like Zinchenko might have to fill in midfield, bring Tierney in. Tierney's another injury-prone player. Right back, obviously you'd have to just hope that Ben White doesn't get injured. It's a lot of hope for lack of injuries that we've got now. The depth is reduced. And I tell you what, if we don't win the title because of injuries, it isn't because of us getting unlucky with injuries. It's because we're ill prepared from the January window to sort of stockpile the positions that we needed to do. We just haven't done it. So for me, for Arsenal, even though I do like the Trossard signing, it's going to be like a B- C, because the Trossard signing is very good. It's very inspiring. It's future-proof. It's cheap, low risk, but a very good player. Jorginho, you can see why he's come in. He's a serial winner sort of leadership. But we've lost so many numbers in terms of depth, just for injury or departures, that overall we're pretty limited. So I'm going to say like a B-/C for Arsenal. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think it's a C, to be honest, because I look at Jorginho as a signing, and I think, what does he actually offer as a player? What is Jorginho's selling point? And other than penalties and maybe a little bit of composure in midfield, I don't really think
he'll start. He's not start, is he? He'll be partying Jack until the end. So
it's just not. It's not the sort of transfer you want to be making, as you say, when you're looking.
Let me rephrase this. Sorry, he'll be partying Jack until party's arrested. But we'll wait and see. So you say C, right? Let's just rank these quickly then.
Yeah.
At number 6, are we in agreement? Man City.
Yeah, Man City. We'll be sick for this one.
Right. Then I think Liverpool.
No, I'm good.
They've signed one player. as good as he is,
I'm going 5th. For me is Spurs, just with Porro. I think it's a little bit average.
Right, okay. I mean, I'll agree with that. Yeah, no, that's fine. It was, to be fair, 5th and 4th were between Liverpool and Tottenham in my head. So as long as you got Liverpool next, I'll agree with that.
I don't. I've got United next. I just think it's average. It's very average. Sabitz is a good signing, but Weghorst is like.
Yeah, but Liverpool's isn't that he's a bad player. It's just they are thick as shit. Like, they just don't know what to do with the squad. They can't exactly like complain at Klopp if they come like 9th, because they've done absolutely nothing to help the kid out.
Yeah, I know, but I think United, well, they have signed someone in Weghorst to fill a gap. It's not what they want. It's not what they needed anyway. So we're
gonna have to disagree on this list, because I think I'd go personally worst City, then probably Liverpool, then Tottenham, then United, and then who are the other teams? Then us, and then Chelsea.
Yeah, I've gone 6th, City. 5th, I've gone Tottenham. 4th, I've gone United. 3rd, Liverpool. 2nd, Arsenal, and 1st, Chelsea. I think.
Right, lovely. I think that's our list then. Obviously a bit different from each other, but oh well. Hope you have enjoyed, as always. Please be sure to like and subscribe on this video if you have, and if you're new to the channel. See more from us. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.